But anyway, retailers for January showing strength. That's good news. Everybody's excited. Of course, we're headed into the whole spring shopping season. That's got a lot to do with it. Not to mention, we've had a very warm winter, even though tonight we're about to get dumped on here in snow where I am. But that has a lot to do with it. And again, I'm not sure. It's one of the reasons why I'm not real big on retail stocks. There's a company very interesting. I just mentioned this. So for about, I don't know, a year and a half or so at least, I've been thinking about adding a company. I've been looking over the last couple of years. I've been looking for more food type companies to make and to have a play on food commodities. And there are a number of different companies that I have been researching and looking at over the last 2 years, 2.5 years. And one of the companies that I just added to my list was Flowers Food. It's a mid-cap company. I think they're out of Georgia. They supply goods and, in fact, to the bakery industry. They're a very solid company financially. Not solid enough to hit my buy list, but just this week I added them to my broad list, not my buy list. Today, they're up 67%. Oh, how I wish I would have put them on my buy list. But they didn't meet what I needed to get on my buy list, but up 67%. They're basing that on increase in volume. Now, I find that very, very interesting. Remember, I said they're supplying the bakery industry. They have a direct correlation to agricultural commodities. I'm assuming, I don't know this, somebody listening probably knows this better than I do, that's in that industry and could weigh in on it if you'd like. But I'm assuming, the kinds of goods that they're supplying to bakeries have a relatively long shelf life. So I'm wondering how many commercial kind of bakeries are, buying ahead in light of what I've been talking about, a potential inflation in cost. So they're hedging against that by buying now at lower prices, or, another natural disaster or other issues, or maybe just demand increasing dramatically, weighing on prices of flour, corn, wheat, and those kinds of things. So anyway, but interesting. So great earnings. So we'll have to, we'll watch that. And again, if you're a partner with me on the website, you may have noticed that I added it to my broader list, but it is not on my buy list. So I can't get too excited and say, let's go out and buy it, or I hope you bought it because I didn't put it on my buy list. Anyway, interesting. Let's just look. Markets aren't open yet, but I did want to take a look at oil before we get to the phones here. And I had indicated that in early futures trading, oil was on its way back up. It is still moving up. Remember yesterday we were pretty excited because, I wasn't excited, but was commenting on the fact that oil had dropped below 96, was in the 95.40 range when I opened up the program. By the time we were done the program, it was up to about 95.80. And right now it is standing at 97.07. So it is back on its way up towards that 98 mark again. The dollar, that's primarily on weakness to the dollar. We're seeing a little bit of a pickup in gold. Got a comment this morning. Someone asked me, I was on another radio program doing an interview. Somebody asked me if I believed that gold's run is over. Is this as good as it's going to get for the year? I'm not a gold guy. You know that. I'm not a gold analyst. I do watch it. I do have opinion about it. And no, I don't think that gold is going to stay here at 1671. Do I think it'll go over 17 again? Yes, I do. And I base that primarily on what central banks are doing. Also, speaking of central banks, there is some good news coming out of, the markets perceive it as good news coming out of Europe in the sense that Bank of England basically leaves the monetary policy unchanged. So they're going to continue to do quantitative easing. All of this based on the central bank here in America and what they're doing. Everybody is following Ben Bernanke as if he knows what he's doing. And he's a very smart man, but not smart enough to call any of this stuff, which is extremely irritating. He was wrong in 2007 when he said the housing bubble and the bad mortgages out there aren't going to impact the economy. He was wrong on unemployment. Staying under 8%. He was wrong on being able to keep inflation in check. He was wrong, and this is all just recently, by the way. He was wrong when he expected a 4% growth rate in GDP, not even close to that. He has been wrong on so many different issues since he has been the Fed chair, and yet the whole world's following him. So anyway, good news, I guess. They're saying they're going to continue their 0.5% on the money, free money, just like the Fed is doing, and continuing their asset purchases. It means buying debt. And they're going to continue around 375 billion pounds, which is about $587 billion, $500 billion. Not quite what the Fed's doing. But you got to look at the Fed's doing $1 trillion this year, on schedule to do another $1 trillion this year. And our economy is so much larger than Great Britain. How much trouble must they be in if they're doing half of what we're doing in quantitative easing? And so they're looking at this as good news. I'm looking at it as, wow, they're doing a little bit more than half of what we're doing, and their economy is a lot less than half the size of America's. But nobody does math like that anymore. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Let me go to the phones. Let me go to Eric. Eric's calling us from Arkansas. Hey, Eric.
Good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
I was listening to your reasoning about the retail not matching the production.
The tonnage?
The tonnage, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I'm a trucker for a living, and things like steel and lumber and glass and grains and all that don't change much. But since, especially in the automotive industry, parts and durable goods, they're not made of what they used to be made of anymore. I know a refrigerator doesn't weigh what it used to weigh, and a TV doesn't weigh what it used to weigh, and God knows a DVD player don't weigh what a VCR used to weigh. And,
right.
You know, I'm just wondering. I mean, I agree with you, but I'm just wondering if that had anything to do with it. In the automotive industry, I know we're trying to reduce the weight of the automobiles to gain the higher mileage, but I'm wondering if parts have a lot to do with that.
You know what, Eric? You make a great point, and I'm embarrassed to say I hadn't even thought of it, but you're right. I don't know how that plays in, but it's got to. I would think it's got to have a lot to do with it. And now that you mention that, it would also stand to reason as parts, for instance, as you mentioned, automobile parts, and there's got to be more things that are being able to go FedEx air or whatever because they're lighter, and so they moved maybe from FedEx ground transportation to FedEx air. That would have something to do with it. So I think you bring in a great point. And as I said, I need to dig deeper into these numbers. And that's one of the things that I need to look at that, frankly, I hadn't thought of. And you may hear me in the next month or so repeating your words there and your analysis, because I think you're probably on the money there and make a great point. That's great stuff, man. I appreciate you calling me on that, Eric. You know, that's what's great about this. You know, we have great listeners, the smartest listeners that are in tune with some of these things from a practical standpoint. You take a guy like Eric; he's on the ground. he knows firsthand. So great point. I appreciate him weighing in on that. Let me go to Elaine. Elaine calling us from Virginia. Hey, Elaine.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to continue actually on what Erica had to say. I work in retail in a medium-sized specialty store, and I have observed that manufacturing has decreased. We're not able to get many products that we need. And when I talk to companies to try and speak with customer service representatives, I'm getting machines now instead of people. So they're reducing their staff, and it's just harder to get the goods. When we do get them, they're a higher price. So our company absorbs if they can, but we ultimately have to pass on increases to the consumer. So I believe that's one reason why the figures seem askew and why they're not as good in sales as they should be.
That's a great point too, Elaine. And I imagine, I was talking to someone yesterday in retail, similar to you, a mid-size or mid to small size retailer chain, who said that there was a day when the manufacturers of goods stocked. They had things in stock in their warehouses. So you would order something and, you could get it in a day or two, and you could order 4 or 5 of them, have them in a couple days. And now you order and you kind of have to wait for the next run. He was using an example of he does primarily sports equipment, and he was doing an example of certain things and how difficult it's been to stock his stores for the baseball season, because it is, you're trying to guess exactly what you're going to need, because if you run short of something, you may have to wait 4 weeks to get it. So great point, Elaine, and I bet you've been running into some of that as well. Thanks, Elaine. I don't know if you're. Yep, I sure appreciate your call. Thank you so much. 888-589-8840. Let me go to Joshua. Joshua calling us from Texas. Hey, Joshua.
Good morning.
Joshua? Yes, sir.
Well, good morning to you, Dan. We are in the last days, and everything. I think the book of the Revelation is open now. I think it's completely unsealed, and it's unsealed by these people. The General Assembly of the firstborn of God are those who heart that God is love. In other words, they hear his voice as the internal motive of life, and they enter the harvest now. Well, I'll make it kind of simple. 2 years to chaos, and then 3 years to the end of time. The fig tree bloom, 1948. 70 years, the general life of man, 2018. And that generation is it.
Yeah.
That's the last
well,
one.
You make a great point, and that is the exact position that so many others have taken, that Anne Graham Lotz was born in 1948. She believes that the generation, as you just mentioned, 1948, is her generation. She believes that she's going to see the Lord return before she dies. She wasn't making a prediction. She just is going from the same prophecy in Revelation that you are, and I got to agree with it. But we got to live as if it's today, and we've got to prepare as if it's 100 years from now. That's what I believe. So we will keep fighting. We will keep preparing, and we'll anxiously and patiently wait for the return. I hope it is today, in all honesty. Thank you, Joshua. I appreciate it. Let's go to break. When we'll get back from break, we'll get to the calls.